Hello and welcome to this Edexcel GCSE Geography topic overview. This one is looking at global development. Remember, these are just short reviews of the key information. They are not everything you need to know and understand. And you should use these with your class notes, revision guides and your own revision notes. When you've watched this, have a go at making your own mind map or even have a go at a video to help improve your revision. Now, as always, we start off by looking at the specification from the exam board. We can see there are two main sections here. First of all, there is the overview of global development and what the key terms are, some of the problems and what's been done about them. And then we look at our case study of an emerging country, and we're going to be looking at India in more detail. So here is the overview mind map, and you can see very complex, lots of information on there. But what you will notice is there are a lot of the things which are very similar, such as the reasons for different bits of development, the impacts of them, and the strategies are very much replicated from the overview to the India case study as well. So, in more detail. First of all, we've got to look at what are the key terms. What is development? Well, development is improving the quality of life, and we can look at this in a number of different main ways. One of them is economic, in terms of money and jobs. So we can look at the gross domestic product or the gross national product. This is how much a country earns. It could be the average wage, which would be the GDP per capita. You could base it on the amount of energy people use or countries use, or it could be the amount of people working in farming, in manufacturing, or working in shops and education. You can also look at it in social terms of quality of life. It might be in terms of education, the literacy rate, years in school. It could be quality of housing. It could be the number of doctors per thousand population, or it could be levels of inequality between the wealthy and the poor. You can also look at it in terms of political quality of life. Are people able to vote for what they want? Do they have freedom to say what they can? And is there cultural freedom and development? Or are people put against because of their gender or their race? Now, this links very much into what are the main measures of development. Now, there are many of these, but the main ones that the exam board want you to know, and you must know these in detail, is the gross domestic product, which is the wealth of a country. And if you put it per capita, that's per person, that gives you sort of an average wage. The HDI, the Human Development Index, measures a number of different factors, including years in education, life expectancy, the gross national income, so the total income of a country, and general living standards and quality of life. You could also look at measures of inequality and corruption within governments to give you measures of development. So what factors can affect the level of development? Well, there is many. Some of them may be social. It may be the quality of housing, the health, the leisure availability and education. It may be economic, looking at how the economy is growing, the jobs available and the living costs. But some of the most important factors can be, is there enough food for everybody and is there enough water for everyone? Because these are the basic needs for life. But also is becoming more important as people develop and get wealthier, is there energy security? Can they have enough energy where they want it? And this is very much linked to technology, machinery for improving work on farms, or things like the internet for education, which as we've seen are becoming, really is a key factor in improving education. But there's also cultural ideas. What are the historical values? Is there a history of democracy and equality of it? Now, we can look at the patterns of development. Where are the wealthier, the developed nations? Well, these can be, as you can see, places like North America, Western Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. These are the ones which generally kind of got on board with the Industrial Revolution. We then have the emerging countries. These are the new countries which are finding new wealth. So China, India, Brazil, South American nations, Southeast Asia, and South Africa. And we have the poorest nations, or the least developed nations, which tend to be those in Central Africa, a place like Bangladesh or Haiti in the Caribbean. Now, we also need to look at the UK, and very simply, we can look at the southeast tends to be seen as richer, and the north is poorer, a north-south divide. Now, what are the reasons for these differences in development? Well, it may be physical factors, such as the climate. Those with temperate climates, which aren't too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, can generally develop better because they have better living conditions. It might be the relief or the shape of the land. Those with very low-lying land might be more prone to flooding, which can cause problems, or it might be very steep mountainous, which is difficult to build on. It could be based on what resources the country had. Did they have coal and water supplies to help them develop? It might be the accessibility, in that countries with coastal locations can easily trade with other countries. And also, if there's lots of natural hazards like hurricanes or cyclones or earthquakes, volcanoes, then this may delay the development of a country because they're always trying to fight with the impacts of those. There can be historic reasons, such as the trade, commonwealths and politics. Do the countries get on with other countries? If they're at war all the time, they're going to spend all the money on that, and that will prevent them becoming developed. And there can also be economic links. Are they linked into world trade? Have they got good infrastructure to encourage business growth, and are they able to attract foreign direct investment? So this really links in with all factors for both global and for UK areas. Now, when we look at this, we can see there are many impacts of these different levels of development. Links to what we said earlier. Things like housing, employment, health, access to education, water, food, and energy. So these can be factors affecting development, but development can also affect these impacts as well. Now, there are many things globally that have been done to try and reduce this uneven development around the world. First of all, we can talk about aid. Now, this might be government-based aid, where governments give monies to each other, either bilaterally, so one country gives money to another country to help it, or it might be multilateral, where all the countries put into a World Bank a big pot of money, and this can be used to help fund big initiatives. This might be large-scale things like improving dams to provide water supply and energy to help countries develop. These tend to be very expensive and can cause problems for local people because they're not involved in them. We can also have sort of voluntary aid, and this tends to come from charities. And these are often involved in these smaller scale, bottom-up type of development projects. This might be building wells for small villages, or toilets to improve sanitation, or getting them internet and solar panels to help small communities. Now, these tend to be smaller scale, they're cheaper, but they will impact on fewer people. The other things is it might be countries trying to attract foreign direct investment through major TNCs. This can lead to the multiplier effect. As a company invests, it provides more jobs. This means people have more money, which they spend in the rest of the economy, which can provide jobs in restaurants, in supermarkets, and things like that. But the negatives from that can be that these TNCs are there to make money, and this can lead to poor working conditions, low wages. They can pollute the environment and can compete with smaller companies, local companies, and put them out of business. And also, the foreign direct investment tends to be just in major cities. So that's the overview. Let's look at India. Now, we need to know the context of India in terms of its location. It's such a vast continent that it has many different climates, from the alpine climates in the north to desert environments to more temperate with rainforests. So there are many different regions. You need to know it's the largest sort of country in the Indian subcontinent, and it has many neighbours from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Tibet, Nepal. Now, there are lots of historical factors in the context of it. It used to be ruled by the UK, so there's strong links there. It also is very religious, with Hinduism, Sikhism, and Islam being the main ones, and this has led to lots of cultural differences. There are also some internal and national political barriers which have restricted development. And limited resources. While it has a lot of coal, it hasn't necessarily got massive oil supplies, and the climate can impact the food. Now, the population is the second largest, 1.3 billion, and it's recently seen rapid urbanisation, so links back to changing cities. But what we're seeing now is that with increasing development, there's increasing life expectancy, birth rate is starting to drop, and there is an ageing population. And the reasons for the changes in population is because it's becoming more developed and more people are urbanizing, or high rates of urbanization. But this is leading to some key factors of the change. There's a growing middle class, so sort of more people having more wealth, which can help the economy, and this is having an improving education as well. But there is still massive inequality between rural areas and urban areas, between the rich and the poor, and between the young connected population and the older population who are less educated. Now, this uneven development and inequality can be seen in the core and periphery areas. Now, we can measure this in terms of the level of technology available, foreign direct investment, the workers in each of the sectors from primary, farming, agriculture, secondary, manufacturing, tertiary and quaternary sectors. So we have a core sector of Mumbai, a major city. It's coastal, so it's got ports, which is good for trade and attracting investment. Excellent infrastructure, roads, rail, airports. It's mainly urbanised, and there's a high secondary and tertiary and quaternary economic sectors. This has led to rapid population growth and economic growth, but there are the problems associated with that, very similar to the changing cities that we saw in the previous video. In contrast, the periphery are the poorer areas. Now, Bihar is in the northeast of the country, and it's typified by mountain areas and lots of low-lying floodplains, and it's also landlocked, so access is difficult. There's been very little investment in infrastructure, so it's hard to get around, and it's mainly rural, so it's mainly work in the primary sector. This has led to the outward migration of the young going to the core areas, and it also sees poor services in terms of education and health, which is another push factor. Now, it's seen rapid development. What are the impacts of this? Well, socially, we can look at there's been more jobs, which is a good thing, but it has led to higher inequality and issues, particularly in the urban areas of health, housing and sanitation. Economically, it's led to more consumerism, the multiplier effect. Tourism has increased and there's more foreign direct investment, leading to the multiplier effect. And it's also seen some improved infrastructure, but this has been unequal. There are also environmental issues, lots of deforestation for more land, for farming, for settlement, and there's also problems of pollution, desertification and CO2. Now, it's important that you look at the revision guides for some more detail on the different solutions. So what has been done socially to improve education, healthcare, housing, sanitation? Which of these have been bottom up, which have been top down? What has been done to improve the economy and reduce inequality? And also what has been done environmentally? And the final thing you need to understand is about the geopolitics, the relationships with other countries. The fact that there are foreign policies relating to aid and trade, how it gets money from other countries and gives it to others. There are disputes with countries like Pakistan over the border, which can take a lot of resources away. So that was a quick overview. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you found it useful. Please check the revision guide. See you again soon. Bye.